I'm trying to get harder and tougher mentally and physically every day of my life.
You're either the growth mindset or you're the fixed mindset.
If you're trying to be the best, you need to look at who the best is and see what they do.
Relentless pursuit of progress.
There's a difference between the best and the rest.
Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast.
Champions are built in the mind first.
Where we interview scientists, world champions, doctors, and experts in just about every area of health and fitness.
What do you care enough about? What are you fascinated enough about to go so deep and learn so much that you'll know more about it than anyone else?
And now, here's your host, Michael Cazayoux.
Hey, this is Michael Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. Today, I've got a couple of the top dogs from the company Wodify on the show. I have Eric Allen and Brendan Rice, who are the Chief Operating and Chief Marketing Officers, respectively. And the reason that I reached out to these guys and had them on the show is because I understood that they have probably talked to more gym owners than anyone on the planet, because they're trying to understand what gym owners, the problems and challenges that gym owners are facing so that they can build technology solutions to make their lives better. And I thought they just would have a ton of wisdom to share, and they did not disappoint. We talk about how they changed the entire CrossFit industry, and were literally laughed out of the room in the beginning when they were trying to put televisions in CrossFit gyms. I remember the first TV I saw in a CrossFit gym, and I thought how silly it was, how it would never work. And here we are about 10 years later, and it's kind of ubiquitous with the word CrossFit. Televisions are in every gym, whether they're using Wodify or one of Wodify's kind of copycats or the people that have came after them. Televisions are everywhere. And we talk about what that was like in the beginning. We talk about the value of buying back your time as a business owner so that you can start focusing on working on your business rather than in your business. Some low-hanging fruit in terms of marketing that you can focus on, how to build a feedback loop in your gym to create a 5-star experience, how to decide when to listen to your customers and when not to. So especially in tech companies, there's this idea of letting your customers build the product or build the software. And while this can be a best practice for some companies, it makes sense to learn how to discern what to listen to and how to read between the lines. Finally, we talk about how culture is king. People used to say cash is king in business. Now they're saying culture is king. And if you have a kick-ass culture, then long-term you will succeed. We talk about how Wodify went through a long period of time where they had a terrible culture. And I'm using their words. People were not stoked to be at work, and they went through some real challenges. And so they talk about what it was like in those times and specifically what they did to get out of it and to get to a place where they have a kick-ass culture. These guys were phenomenal. And while they haven't been gym owners themselves, they were some of the most insightful people I've ever talked to in terms of how to run a successful CrossFit gym. So please help me welcome Eric and Brendan. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good to
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I'm glad to have y'all here in Austin. So we need to get this out of the way, Eric. Your Instagram handle is Sharts and Giggles. What's up with that, man?
So I'm not a social media person or Instagram, kind of person, but I had, you have to set one up these days to follow along with your friends. So I told myself I was doing it just for shits and giggles, and I always have to be a little bit different. So instead of just being shits and giggles, it's Sharts and Giggles.
Amazing, amazing. I thought that was hilarious. And do we need to be worried about anything?
No, I know. I'm sitting on your couch.
Yeah,
you're trying to sell your house. I know. So no, don't worry.
So tell me about the company culture of Wodify, like after hours. We'll get into like real business company culture, but what's it like when y'all are relaxing, just hanging out with each other?
It's definitely evolved over the years. When we were first starting, and say the first 5 of us all went to the same CrossFit gym together. I mean, we were literally like working out together, working together, partying till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then working out again the next day together. And but as we've grown into a company, more of a company from that 5-person startup, it's definitely evolved quite a bit. Brendan.
Yeah, like I think we have a pretty unique culture in a sense of like work hard, play hard, and just really good relationships between everyone. Like it's very common for, Friday at the office, have a beer at 5, and the next thing you know, it's like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and everyone's still in the kitchen at the office, and we're like, wow,
Yeah.
what happened? So yeah,
I think that's a good testament to the culture too. It's one thing to have a beer together at a pre-planned happy hour or whatever, but yeah, when you see people still in the office at 8 p.m. on a Friday having a beer together, that's kind of
if they're having a beer together, as long as they're not still working and addicted to it, that's a great thing.
No, I would say the first beer normally gets cracked actually lunchtime on Fridays.
Yeah, 8:30, 9:30 a.m.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little while ago about how in the beginning of Wodify, you were kind of a laughing stock to a lot of people. You were suggesting to put televisions inside of CrossFit gyms that were traditionally, they took pride in being these grungy, like,
dusty, dirty, dingy, and rusty.
Exactly.
Is part of my pitch.
And my first experience with Wodify was I think I saw a TV in a gym when I was traveling once, and I was like, that is so stupid. This is CrossFit. So y'all started there, and now you are ubiquitous with the word cross, like you're everywhere.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how you guys started.
Yeah, I mean, the first idea was solving a problem that the community maybe didn't know that they had, not necessarily tracking results. But the thing is, you have this gym, and at the time, this really expensive class-based fitness model was a lot newer. And so you're asking people to spend $150, $160, $170 a month on something. And those people tend to see really big results in the first couple months, and then that tails off. And so how are you consistently reinforcing your value as the gym, and why should they keep paying you? And so the problem that Wodify solved was it put those results up front, right in front of the person on a day-to-day basis, and consistently reinforced their progress. So that was the problem it was solving that the market didn't necessarily know it had. But to your point, our first regionals up at Reebok headquarters in Canton, 2012, and we have this booth with these 2 TVs, and you were laughing from afar, but there was quite literally people laughing in our face, telling us that that concept was silly. And to your point, now I would argue that almost every CrossFit gym has TVs in it, whether it's Wodify or not. Whether it's Wodify or one of the knockoffs.
All the way to the point where you require people to have a television, right?
Yeah, and especially a lot more in the early days, because when we first launched Wodify, 2 free customers, proof of concept, and then go get a couple paying customers. And when you're trying to get those couple paying customers, we had this concept of the 2 TVs and the computer, but it wasn't mandatory. And so, this new foreign concept that's sort of laughable, gym owners were a little adverse to go spend money on a couple TVs and a computer and everything like that. And so they would dip their toe in to test it, maybe with an iPad in the corner. The problem is with the iPad in the corner, it's cumbersome, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so we started telling people that if you don't do it, quote unquote, what we consider the right way, then don't do it at all, because you're actually harming our brand, because you're going to then go tell people that Wodify doesn't work. It's not that Wodify doesn't work. You didn't implement it as prescribed.
I love it.
And yeah, it was like, because we were changing a behavior, it wasn't like this little add-on or new thing. It was changing an entire behavior about the gym experience. And so in order for that to be successful, we had seen it be successful, but we knew we needed to take kind of a hands-on approach. We were like, it was almost like, kind of trust us, this is what you need to do. And we kept on seeing, once gyms did it that way, they saw better retention, they saw the adoption from their members. And so that's why early on it was such a big behavior change that we had to take a very strict approach to hey, trust us, here's how it's going to work.
Yeah, it must have been so much easier for all of the other companies that started after you. Once you've already done all of the education piece and gotten all of the early adopters, the people that are kind of always on the cutting edge of things, you've already done that hard work. And then they come in and they're like, we offer this other thing too.
Yeah. And It wasn't easy. I mean, I think a lot of successful businesses have to make some of these hard decisions early on, but it's really hard to do. And that decision is to turn away customers who don't share your vision. And so, in those early days in our contract, we had with our high profile customers early in the days, we'd go set up the kiosk because we knew, at the time it was Grandview with Graham Holmberg. Now he has 11th Element and down at Mayhem. We knew that there'd be a lot of people coming through those gyms and it had to look really good. So we'd go fly out there and set it up. And we took a picture of the setup in Graham Holmberg's gym. And that's the picture that still to this day remains in our user agreement as an example of what a proper Wodify kiosk looks like. And we had plenty of people who early on, frankly, got quite passionately angry at us because they really wanted Wodify, but they didn't want to comply with that part.
TV, yeah.
And so we would say, well, then it's not a fit. And they would get quite angry at us because they wanted it so bad, but couldn't have it, and start yelling at us and telling us that, you can't tell me how to run my business. And my response was always, well, I'm not telling you how to run your business. I'm telling you how we run ours, and you can opt into it.
I love that.
Yeah. It'd be like someone coming into your gym being like, all right, well, I don't want to actually take any of your classes or do your stuff. Just like, let me go, use those weights. Let me do something. And we were pretty focused and going back to like, trust us. And we knew how to make those gyms successful. So even those early gyms that we partnered with that were kind of influential in the industry, we went in and set up their kiosks, but all we did was just say, we didn't like sign like an influencer agreement or anything. We just said, hey, try this our way. And if you like it, and if your members find value, all we ask is that you tell some people about it or share about it. And you could look at like a heat map of our early customers, and there's literally just patches around
the big
these
ones,
gyms,
like
Mayhem and CFIT. These gyms just have, like, it was just such a natural effect. That's how we knew we were kind of onto something.
That is so cool. I have several thoughts based on that. First, it takes a lot of courage to say no to people asking you to use your service, but in a slightly different way. And I think gym owners struggle with this all the time. People want a new competitor program or a new weightlifting program. And sometimes that works for gyms to offer more and more things and to cater to each individual. And sometimes you just have to say, no, this is what we do. We are for this type of person. If you see the world and fitness this way, and if not, then here are some other options in the area. It takes a lot of courage and commitment to do that.
Yeah, and there's a fine line because there's other times too where you have to bend to the customer. So prime example, typically there's 2 TVs in the gym. We have the workout is on one screen, and the other screen is what we call the coach board. That's where the members sign in and log results. Well, it's called a coach board for a reason. We envisioned the coaches logging results for the members, but as we saw it sort of quote unquote in the wild, we found that members actually logged the results. And so we weren't going to try to make customers bend to us in that way. Like, they found the organic, natural way, and that drove the best adoption for them. We just never changed the name. It's still called the coach board. But in the other example of hanging the kiosk up, we felt passionate about that because we knew that was the best way to get the best results for the gym, frankly.
Yeah. And like you said, having that courage or that long-term vision, whatever you want to call it, especially early on, like we were talking earlier, we're bootstrapped companies. So it wasn't like we were flushed with cash. And so we had people with their credit cards out ready to sign up, and we had to say like no to them essentially.
Right. Yeah. And for those of you who don't know this, a lot of tech companies, maybe the majority, they run by outside funding. And so they just have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to hire a bunch of developers and top level talent to just build things before they're even making money. And you guys were not built that way. You had to do things that people actually wanted to buy that was actually getting them better results. Another thing that popped into my head was, have y'all heard the Airbnb story about them like flying to places? So this, what you just said reminded me of their story. So you went to Graham Holmberg and Rich's gym to set it up yourself. When Airbnb started, like this is 10 years ago, the idea of paying money to stay in a stranger's house was absolutely ridiculous. And when they first started, people would take these really crappy like iPhone photos, and it just looked like a homeless shelter or something like that. And so what they did is they flew themselves out to people's homes and took professional photos, and then it just took off like gangbusters. I really love that about you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting, and thank you, and definitely have to give credit where credit's due. Amit, who was the founder of Wodify, he learned some of those business principles kind of the hard way through a couple failed endeavors, if you will, and learned from those mistakes that sometimes you have to draw a hard line in the sand.
And in the beginning, you can afford to do things that aren't scalable, and a lot of gym owners, I think, are probably still in that position where they can over deliver and get more into the weeds than they might if they have, 300, 400, 500 members at their gym. Let's talk about the real value in Wodify, because I think it taps into a bigger philosophy for gym owners. You guys have probably talked to more gym owners than anyone on the planet through figuring out what they need from your product. And from my perspective, one of, if not the biggest value adds is that it saves their time. They don't have to spend time. They might not have to spend time tracking finances or tracking or writing programming, inputting programming. They have a number of different things that can save a shitload of their time. Why is this even important in the first place? Why can't they just do it all themselves?
So one thing I think is kind of interesting to point out there too is that that value prop is actually morphed over time. That wasn't our value prop on day one. And I think there's a real parallel there to a lot of other businesses. One example might be for a CrossFit gym. You're the first CrossFit gym to open up in your town, and your prop might be that you are providing a fitness experience or a type of fitness that nobody else is. And then 3 other gyms open in your town, and now you got to figure out, well, now what is my value prop? What's unique to me? And so on day one for us, that value prop was member retention. Our whole product was the performance tracking piece, the kiosk members logging results. And so we're going to help you gain and retain members. Now, over time, our main product is the business side of the house, the business system. And so it's morphed into saving gym owners time.
Yeah. And I think why it's so important is even the hardest working gym owners or entrepreneurs only have 24 hours in a day. So you can say, well, I'm sleeping at the gym, I'm coaching 5 classes, and I'm doing all the business. And that's awesome. You a lot of people have to do that early on, but at the end of the day, everyone only has, so many hours. So if we can save you 2 hours on your financial reporting and your member communication, and you can spend that time marketing your gym or talking to your members and, building relationships so they refer their friends, that's the value prop around saving time you're talking about, is how can we free up gym owners to spend their time doing the things that are going to really grow their business and not the day-to-day operations just to keep their business running.
Yeah, it's allowing them to work on the business rather than being so caught up working in the business and just bogged down in the weeds, right?
Yeah, and it's so much more rewarding too, I think, doing it in a space where you're catering to small businesses. Because these are oftentimes solopreneurs or maybe a couple part-time employees. Maybe they're fortunate enough to have a few full-time employees. But a lot of them, left a job paying X amount of dollars, working 40 hours a week, work-life balance, and then they went to follow a passion. And they find that in many cases, they're working 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, making 0.5X whatever it was before. And now they're struggling to strike that work-life balance again. And it's just an awesome place to be able to be impactful, sort of on an individual level that.
I think the majority of business owners in general, and definitely in the CrossFit space, look at marketing as an event, right? I'm going to print out this flyer and I'm going to get all these new customers, or I'm going to do these Facebook ads and I'm going to get all these new customers. I'm going to do a free
Groupon when that was
Groupon
big.
and get all these customers, right? It's a single event. I've heard you guys talk somewhere about marketing and sales as a process. How can people think about this? And maybe we use the dating analogy. I'm sure you guys have heard the marketing dating analogy. Maybe not.
Go.
Yeah. Well, we want to make sure
we don't just meet someone and ask them to get into bed with us.
Right. So I think one of the things I like to start with is your marketing starts with the experience everyone has when they walk in the door. Start with where you're at right now is the people that are your members that are coming to the gym every day, and the experience they're having is going to be your best first marketing asset. What are people saying out in the world that are members of your gym, and how are they bringing in their friends? That's the best place to start, because if your members aren't talking about their experience outside of your gym, then it doesn't make sense for you to be spending all your time in Facebook's ads manager, in my opinion. And the other thing about when I talk to gym owners, sometimes I feel like they get a little overwhelmed or distracted with the idea of maybe they're at 100 members and they want to grow to 200. So they're trying to make decisions around how am I going to get 100 members and not how am I going to get the next 5 members, or breaking it down into actual manageable goals, because then it becomes a little more tangible or realistic. And honestly, like I mean, we do Facebook advertising and Facebook ads platform is like a super powerful tool, but there's so many things that need to happen before you dive into that world. Like I said, making sure your members are talking about your gym, making sure all your processes are dialed in. So when you do start getting new leads, are you working and following up with all those leads, cancellations, all that stuff. So yeah, those are just a few of my thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a great insight. And one of the biggest that I've had in terms of marketing in general is that your product is so integrated into the marketing. If you create a 5-star experience for someone and then they go and share it with 5 friends, you don't have to spend money on Facebook ads or Google ads or, creating a really expensive YouTube videos.
Yeah. And thinking about marketing and sales and that whole like customer journey, not just one part of it. And so we talk about this a decent amount. It's I've heard other people say it too, but like making sure that if someone emails, fills out a form, calls your gym, that like those are the people who are considering joining. And so if you're not answering the phone or immediately following up with them or providing like a super clear experience on how they'd actually join your gym, then like you need to fix that before you start getting 100 leads a month through Facebook ads or anything like that.
And you can't even follow up with them. Yeah, I heard your interview with Jason Kalipa where you were talking about you integrate with Callingly, I think it's called. That is fucking cool. The ability. So I think this feature, explain the feature. You can do it better than me.
Yeah, so we integrate our platform with a product called Zapier, and what Zapier is sort of like a crossroads
middleman, tech middleman.
Yeah, it's like a crossroads that can connect a whole bunch of different apps, and so we saw that as a good move for us to be able to help gym owners solve a lot of problems, with a little bit of effort and no code or anything like that on the gym owner's part, so they can pick a couple systems, integrate it together using Zapier. And one of them, just to the example that I was given in that cast, was the Callingly. And what Callingly does is, let's say somebody fills out a form on your website showing interest, it puts that lead in the Wodify. But if you have this integration hooked up, what will happen is your phone will ring immediately and a little robot will say like, hey, Bob Smith just filled out this form on your website. Do you want to talk to him? And if you say yes, then it rings back to Bob. And so within 3 or 4 seconds of Bob filling out that form on your website, he's probably still on your website. You're calling his phone. And the studies are abundant, and every second counts when somebody shows interest in your product.
And supposedly you can give it like a little cute Australian accent, whatever you want, right? The Callingly bot.
I think so. Yeah, I haven't played with it in a long time. But
I just made that up.
Okay.
I'm testing you. Another thing that I want to mention, the whole dating analogy. I heard, don't know Dean Jackson at all, marketer. So he basically makes this point that if you treat every person that comes through your gym or comes to your website or enters your mailing list as a one-day customer rather than they're either a customer right now or they're never a customer, the way that you start to interact with people can completely change, because then you start really thinking about giving value to people long-term and nurturing those relationships. So one takeaway that I hope listeners get from this is that marketing is not a one-time event. It is a 10-year, 20-year thing. If you treat everyone as if they're going to buy from you at some point, how much is it worth giving value to them?
Yeah, and I mean, something that I think sort of what Brendan was getting at too is that when it comes to marketing, like look at your product first. Because you can get all the people through the door. But if your product's not solid, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a gym experience, whether it's a widget you're selling, if the product's not sound, then those people you bring in the door are going to be falling right out the bottom of the funnel.
Are there any like real low-hanging pieces of fruit for gym owners in terms of marketing that you've seen? Like maybe big mistakes that they're making that are easily fixable or anything like that?
I mean, for me, one of the mistakes I'm seeing goes back to that idea of like trying to figure out how you're going to get 100 members, not figure out how you're going to break that down and get like 1 or 2 members. And so some of that, like honestly, Facebook ads is a good example. There's a lot of examples like this. Maybe it's like chasing things that you like think you should be doing. And so like you can get lost in Facebook ads, but hours and hours in there. And until you've done other kind of foundational things, you probably shouldn't even be touching that or spending money on that. So one I'll steal an example from the NC Fit guys. Like one thing I saw them doing recently was handing out around the holidays these little cards to all of their members that they could give to their friends that just said like "Happy Holidays. I wanted to give you like a free class."
I've done this.
Oh,
I
nice.
did this.
There you
Yeah.
go. So there's some small like creative things. Again, just think like, how are you going to get the next 2, 3, 5 members? Not how are you going to get the next 100. So are you still going to coffee shops and businesses? Are you still making sure like word of mouth isn't just let me provide a good experience and hope my members talk about it. Like word of mouth can be an actual tactical marketing strategy with some small things, like small asks. If your members might talk about it if it's great, but if you give them an actual like task to talk about you, they're way more likely to do that.
A task, a specific person, right? When you're asking when you're asking people to refer you, the more specific you can be, the better. If you just say, "Do you know anyone?" they're thinking about the 1,000+ people they know. If you say, "Do you have a family member? Do you have a colleague that could use this service?" That restraint makes it so much easier for them to bring someone to mind and then refer you.
Yeah, and the other low-hanging fruit in my mind is website and online presence in general. So people today are going to do at least a few things before they pick up the phone and they call you or they fill out a form. They're probably going to look at reviews and they're probably going to browse your website. And so you don't need to have the fanciest website in the world, but you need to, like, when's the last time you went on your website and pretended that you were looking for a gym and actually clicked around and interacted with it? So that's something you could do like today. Go on your website, check it out, see if there's any way to improve that experience. And then reviews are another great one. Like people need social proof now. And so going back to leveraging the members you already have, asking all of your members to leave a review is something like I look at so many gyms reviews and there's less than 20 on Yelp or Google or anything. It's like you probably have more than 20 members.
Yeah. And a lot of times they're raving fans. And
exactly.
All you need to do is ask them.
Exactly.
And you can actually, I've had a number of different businesses and services send me an email asking me to do it. And they give me such concise, great instructions on exactly how to leave a Google review or a Yelp review. And I'm like, of course I'll do this. It takes me like 2 seconds. So make a really concise, specific ask. I really like that one. There's something else that you said that I wanted to touch on. You're just so smart, man. Those are great. So at Wodify, you guys are like lots of tech companies, your philosophy is to allow your users to build the product for yourself through feedback loops. Can you talk about this philosophy a little bit?
Yeah, and there's a fine line there, and I've been using that phrase a lot. I'll talk on both sides of it though.
There's fine lines all over the place, man. Don't worry.
I'll kind of talk on both sides of it. It's obviously it's hypercritical to listen to your customers. We have a lot of mechanisms in place to do that within our organization. All organizations should make sure that there's a open line of communication back upstream from the customer to the company. A couple ways we do that. We have a forum at ideas.wodify.com, so customers or anybody really can always go there. And
is it upvoted like Reddit?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then, but what's really cool is that it's not only upvoted really by the customer directly through that portal, because that is a bit of an asking people to go there. But customers will, if you're listening, customers are always talking. And so we use a tool called Product Board, which has a little Chrome extension, which becomes a little icon on the top of your browser. And so anywhere we are, if we're on Facebook, any forum or anything, if anybody out in the internet world says anything that's an idea for Wodify, we can highlight that text, press that button, and it zaps it back into the back end of our portal on Product Board. Now, the other side of that coin, though, is while you, of course, have to listen to your customers, you have to also be kind of innovating and having original thoughts as well. The story I kind of like to tell here is that on day one, when Amit had the idea for Wodify and approached the gym owner, and the gym owner said, I don't care if you gave Wodify to me for free. I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't want it in my gym. And so what Amit always says is that, if we listen to our potential customer in that case, then Wodify wouldn't even exist. So, you definitely have to listen to customers. You definitely have to take that feedback, but you also have to have original thoughts. You have to extrapolate the customer's ideas, because sometimes the customers, they know the problem that they have and they're articulating an idea. But if you really dig 1 or 2 layers deeper, there's this really great book called Question Behind behind the question. It's about this. And if you dig to the root of what you're getting at, what you'll often find is that the question or the comment they're making isn't really what's on their mind.
Do you have an example of that?
Not off the top of my head, but I will in a second.
One other way it's kind of ingrained in our philosophy, this idea of customer feedback, is if you look at how we've grown over the years, we started as performance tracking. And so in the early days of Wodify, people had some sort of member management software, and they had Wodify for performance tracking. And we, in the early days, actually explicitly weren't planning on getting in like payment processing. We were never going to actually process payments or manage your members. But we listened to our customers, and more people were like, hey, you do performance tracking, but I don't want to use two systems. I need you guys to do member management, coach management, payment processing. And so if you look at the evolution of our product, almost all of our product is built based on customer feedback, whether it was a specific, hey, you guys need to be able to do wait lists, or it was a general, hey, you need to be able to make it so I don't need two pieces of software to run my gym. So we've been
huge. Yeah, and some of them are using 3 or 4.
Yeah, totally. So listening to customers to just help kind of shape our entire company, and trying to hear every piece of customer feedback is just another data point. It's not the answer. So when a customer says, hey, I want X, it's not like, okay, go turn around and build it. It's all right, that's one data point. This other customer wants something similar. What are they both getting at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's how we've kind of thought about it. Eric's
I think I got my idea. I think I got the idea of the answer to your question.
Guys. Yeah.
So our performance tracking module is very much by design simplistic. We make it easy for gym owners to put workouts in. Most of it is just typing text, so it's not a whole lot of configuration. And then for putting results in, very simplistic as well. Over the years, we'd gotten a ton of requests to make that deeper and deeper and deeper. And I totally get why. If you get deeper, you can get better analytics. And for that top 5% of your members who are working all year to try to put 5 pounds on a lift or something, you need that deep analytics. That would be better, but that's not us. We're the solution for the other 95% of the members. And so that was a tough one over the years to sort of take a hard line on and say no to the customers, not build what they were asking for, because in the best interest of getting mass adoption and driving the most value back to the gym.
Right. So how can gym owners make use of this model of allowing their athletes to build the service that they want at their gyms? It's a little bit different than a tech company building software, but how can they use this?
For me, I think it starts with actually intentionally talking and having those conversations. So have you talked to your members about why they continue to pay you every month? What is the most value they're getting out of your gym? Why do they like it so much? And that conversation will naturally, I think, lead into, I love you. It'd be great if you offered X, or you can start to pry at that. Okay, here's what you like, and what's the next level? Or maybe you've helped them get more, have fitness be more part of their lifestyle, and learn about the other things they're doing in their life that are related to that. And maybe there's some of that you could bring in house. So if suddenly you realize, you have 50 members who are doing nutrition counseling in addition to your classes, do you offer that at your gym? Maybe that's something you can incorporate as part of your offering. Yeah.
Or they're all buying the same meal delivery service or something like that. So we do, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, on the flip side, the thing to caution, and it goes back to what Eric just mentioned, is to still keep in mind this idea of how you can incorporate feedback that will benefit most of your customers or users, because you might go through this exercise and the one person in your gym who wants some awesome new piece of equipment, and they're really I really want this, but they're the only one who's going to use it.
Right.
That's an example where you can't, where you might not incorporate that piece of feedback. So when you're having those conversations, try not to introduce them as, hey, what do you want in the gym? Because then you have to say oh, I didn't do this. Just approach them as, hey, I'm looking to learn more, casual conversation.
I love that. So at WAG, we've done some really deep, what we call avatar interviews. I think a guy named Eben Pagan, who's actually a mentor of mine, I think he invented that term avatar. Not the word
not James
avatar,
Cameron.
Yeah, maybe. But the term avatar marketing interviews. Anyway, we do we've done these interviews with like 10 to 15 people, and some of the so half of the questions are about just understanding who people are in general. What do you like to do as a hobby? What brands do you follow and why? What do you do on the weekends? Like everything about them, but some really specific like product service related questions, like if you were the CEO, what would you change tomorrow of this gym or you know, of WAG? So I really, really encourage people to sit down the people at your gym that you want to find more of, people that you are your ideal client that you want to attract more of, and use that to better focus your messaging for external, for people outside of your company, but also to figure out like, what can you do better for them?
Yeah. And one other just idea to throw in here is feedback is really good for idea generation. It's also really good for filtering ideas. So if you're deciding between offering 3 new class times or maybe 3 new class types, use your members or some mechanism of customer feedback to help you filter those ideas. Some owners I'll talk to will be like, well, I'm thinking about these 3 class times. Guess I got to pick one and launch it and do all this stuff around it, versus being like, all right, well, you have 3 ideas for what to do. Put it out there and see what people raise their hand for.
Yeah, do a Facebook poll.
Yeah, exactly.
Do a Facebook poll and let them upvote it.
The only thing that I like to throw out there too is as like a cautionary tale when listening to feedback is making sure that you're focusing on data and not data points. And another way of saying that is not focusing on the loud minority. So just because one person asks you for something, that's a data point, not data. If you're a 300 person gym and 4 people ask you, that's a couple data points. It's a drop in the bucket. And I also encourage people to always reflect back on their business plan and their vision for their business too, to make sure that they're staying true to themselves and not getting a little too chaotic. Michael used the word focus in your messaging too, right? And making sure that you do stay focused as well. And you know, if you're a CrossFit gym and you have 150 members and a ton of them are asking you to throw in a rock climbing wall, I don't know, maybe that makes sense for you. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you just need to turn your gym into a rock climbing gym if that's what they all want. But making sure that, you know, if that doesn't fit your vision and your business model, that it is okay to say no sometimes as well. And
one other topic on this is the concept of eating your own dog food. Like, when is the last time you attended one of your classes as a member, didn't offer any coaching tips, literally just as a member, so you can actually understand where that feedback's coming from? We try to exercise that at Wodify too, so that we can, you know, I'm in the marketing department, I don't run a gym, but I still, you know my way around the app, and I can still understand when I get customer feedback, like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I've actually experienced it firsthand as well.
Yeah, that's phenomenal advice. So let's take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about company culture and how to build a thriving team. This episode is also brought to you by Jumbo CBD. If you're not already on the CBD train, then I'm sure you've at least heard of it before, because many people thought in the beginning that this was just a legal way to get high. And unfortunately for some of you, you can't get high on CBD. You can try, but you can't get high on it. On the other hand, it can help you sleep better. It can reduce stress and anxiety. It can be huge for pain relief and reducing inflammation. Personally, I've had knee pain for about 5 years now, and I haven't been able to figure out a way to get rid of it. I haven't figured out the root cause. I've worked with PTs and chiropractors, and I just haven't been able to eradicate it. So I have used some pain relieving techniques, and this is one of them. I've used Jumbo's extra strength 200 milligram balm, and it absolutely does not completely take the pain away, but it makes it manageable. It allows me to get into a deeper squat. It allows me to walk around and just go about my daily activities without feeling much pain at all. And whether that's placebo or not, I really don't care, because I just don't feel like I'm in as much pain. I've also used their sprays, and there's a really subtle relaxing effect to the sprays. So that's pretty great. It's helpful for sleep and reduces a little bit of like a feeling of tension in my chest, which I often call anxiety. It's great for athletes and recovery. And some specifics, and what sets Jumbo apart is that they have 100% natural ingredients, full spectrum CBD sourced from Colorado and Oregon. They have CO2 extracted oils that are, I think, safer. They They have therapeutic grade essential oils in a lot of their products, third party lab tested, so it's legit. And they're one of the first CBD companies to post their lab results publicly. I also know the owners of this company very well. They're very close friends of mine, and I trust them deeply. Again, my favorite product of theirs is the 200 milligram extra strength balm. I've also used the sprays, but they also have drops and butters or ghee. I think ghee is like a butter type thing. So there's all sorts of different products. And they're offering you 15% off of anything in their store. And you can get access to that by going to jombocbd.com and use the code BRUTE in all caps. That's BRUTE in all caps. A couple more things. So a huge plus of their sprays and drops is that they use MCT oil. So since CBD is a fat soluble molecule, it binds with this oil and allows for much more rapid and effective absorption of the actual CBD. It also has essential oils that add flavor, and they bring their own proven health benefits as well. With the Muscle Bomb, since they use ghee as the base, again, ghee is like a butter type thing, the CBD is binding with the ghee fat, and it's able to be carried all the way to the bones. Ghee itself has amazing topical healing properties, and when CBD is added, the results can be pretty profound. So again, you can get access to this discount, 15% off of all of their products by going to jombocbd.com and enter the code BRUTE, all caps, at checkout. Go get them. Okay, guys. Sorry, Eric sharded, and we had to take a little break. No, the batteries were dying on the recorder. So, thanks for humoring me, guys. So they used to I don't know who they are, but they used to say cash is king in business, and now they're starting to say culture is king more and more. Why do y'all think that is?
Because we learned the hard way. So. Yeah, I mean, really interesting story, I think, and it's a great case study. It's a common story that's talked about, I think, more and more now. But I think a lot of people can learn from our mistakes. And in our earlier days, I talked earlier about how there was 5 of us or something like that, and we had this amazing culture, but it wasn't defined as our culture. It just was what it was. It just existed, and then. As I remember the day that in my mind I use as a milestone of when that started to change. As you start hiring a few people that you don't know, that aren't already in your in your world and aren't already bought into your unstated vision, and it was in an interview when I was interviewing somebody to come on for a support role, and they asked about their career path, and it kind of took me back because I had never thought about that. Like when I came on to work for Wodify, I never thought about career path. I was just going to do something exciting and hoping that it would turn into something. But as you start to scale the company and go from that startup where everybody's already bought into that unstated vision, and you turn into a company, you really, really need to start thinking about, well, what is that vision? It needs to become a stated vision with a defined set of core values and a defined purpose and mission statement. And those things matter incredibly. And it manifested in a really distinct way for us. And we had a period where our culture was quite bad. And Brendan came onto our company at a really interesting moment when culture was perhaps at an all-time low. And
is that why they brought him in, you think? Like he just fit the low?
They thought
he's like, he belongs here.
They thought somebody with that amazing hair could, that was what would turn it around. The reason why I say he has a unique vantage point that's a bit different from mine is because I was there for all the ebbs and flows of the tide leading up to it, but at this point in time the culture really was at an all-time low, and the way it manifested, I mean, I'll let Brendan take it here in a second, but when he came on at that time, if an employee came onto our company, no less than 2 or 3 employees would actually go up to them in the corner in the kitchen and say, "Oh my gosh, why would you come work here? Like it's terrible."
Wow.
And that actually happened to Brendan. And then I'll let you kind of tell the transition story.
Yeah. What was that like for you? Like, I'm sure you were very excited coming to work for the team. So start the journey before you enter Wodify and take us through that.
So let's see. The journey before I started Wodify, I had through a kind of random series of events, I got introduced to Amit, who's the founder of Wodify. And I was looking for kind of the next adventure in my life and really liked I liked my conversation with him. I could really appreciate the product and the market and just get behind what we were trying to do, and a really exciting stage of a company. Some company that had been around for a few years, had some traction, proven that they could build a product that people wanted, but had so much potential ahead of them. So when I came on, it really was like an exciting new chapter for me, super pumped. And like Eric said, when you have that attitude, and like anytime you start a new job or start a new habit, you have kind of like bright eyes, like ready to go. And the first time you'll like talk to someone who's been there for a year or two, who just makes some comment that you're like, oh, like maybe that's not quite what it's like, or just like just super disheartening early on. The way I approached it, honestly, and things changed pretty quick, but the way I try to approach it at Wodify and in general is like, what you do at work, you're going to spend more time with those people than probably anyone else. And you're going to spend a majority of your life, or a lot of your life, at work. So if you're not fired up about what you're doing at work, then you should find something else. And if you aren't finding something else, then do everything you can to change your day-to-day at work. Like,
Amen.
Don't sit there and be complacent and just complain. So that was, at least, I mean, that's easier said than done, because you can have that attitude, but then you're sitting there at lunch with 5 people, and if the attitude's not great, then you're like, oh, this is really hard to do. But that's the attitude I tried to have during those times, was like, look, I'm going to be here at a minimum 8 hours a day. So I'm not going to kind of put myself in a place where I don't feel like I have any control, and just say, I'm going to be miserable for 8 hours.
Right.
And have more of like, well, if I don't like something, I'll at least try to change it.
So why, before we go into how your company culture has changed, why is it so important? Why, like, I'm assuming Wodify was, profitable. You're in thousands of gyms already. You're very successful. So you've got a lot of cash. You've got a successful business. But why focus on culture? Why is that so important?
Because when you hate going to work every day, how are you going to scale past that? Like, nobody likes being, we were profitable and we had thousands of gyms, but we didn't want to just sit in that hamster wheel. We wanted to continue to grow and scale. And that culture was really holding us back. I mean, it's not the founder or the managers that really carry the company forward. I mean, those roles exist for a reason, and there's that place, but it's the bulk of the staff that's really carrying that vision forward, the ones that are interacting with your customers. If the people that work for the company don't believe in the company, don't believe in the product, then how are they actually going to evangelize that to the market? It's impossible.
Yeah, like, culture is so important in any business, because pretty much no matter what you do, what industry you're in, people are your most important asset. And as soon as you're out of the very early stages of the business, one person or a couple people can only do so much. Like, going back to the so many hours in a day kind of thing.
Yep.
So for a business to grow, it's the decisions and the work that everyone there is doing every day, and culture is the way those decisions are made and the way that work is done. And so I saw, like, going back a little bit, before I joined Wodify, I was part of a company that was under the Quicken Loans umbrella. Quicken Loans is a 16,000 person company.
Wow.
And culture was the number one thing they talked about. Every new hire spent 3 full days doing culture training with the CEO of the company, who came in for 3 full days and talked about their company culture.
Wow.
Because they understood, and now at Wodify, I think we understand that the way to grow a company is through culture and understanding. It's not the efforts of 1 or 2 people. It's the efforts of everyone having the same shared set of values and the same shared vision that really take you from kind of a small enterprise to something that can be bigger than that.
Right. I look at culture as like the asset that will get people results, or make an impact, or make the business profitable long term, right? You could be profitable and successful right now, but if you don't have a good culture, then at some point you're going to fail.
Yeah. And just feeling like fulfilled. I think one of the things that started happening was people at all levels of the company had this mindset shift where suddenly it wasn't fun to come to work anymore. and as soon as that happens, something big has to change. And so for us, that resulted, like, culture, there wasn't a day where we woke up and we're like, oh, it was great yesterday, it's bad today. Unfortunately, if you don't stop and define your culture, it slowly kind of erodes over time. So suddenly, not suddenly, like, but we came to a realization where it was like, wow, we did not do a good job of defining and setting our culture. And so it's slowly eroded into what it is today. But fortunately, when that did happen, and we kind of had that wake up moment, we took pretty drastic action to course correct.
Was there like an event that happened? Was there a moment where you decided, okay, this needs to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the time we knew something had to change. We were looking for answers. And
what were the symptoms? What were y'all noticing?
Just feeling like you're swimming upstream every day, like fighting with your own teammates, essentially.
Okay.
You know, that concept
arguing, conflict, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but not necessarily as obvious as arguments and conflict, but just not being able to move the ball forward, right? And realizing that it's not your opponent holding you back, it's your teammates, and it's not any one person, it's not any one event, it's just I think waking up really, really tired one day or over time and realizing that this has been going on for a long time. Like Brendan said, it doesn't happen every day. Maybe you kind of have this awakening, but you realize it's been happening for months or years.
Yeah, and to borrow kind of some of the wording Amit uses, like if you find yourself hitting the snooze button instead of jumping out of bed, why? And starting to ask some hard critical questions of yourself and not blaming anyone else and just being like, all right, what's going on? So that was kind of...
Yeah, and so there wasn't necessarily an event where we knew that it was the culture, but there was definitely an event where we knew that fixing culture was the answer. And while going through that exercise of sort of searching for answers and reflecting internally and having conversations at the management level and trying to figure out what's going on, Amit wound up going over to training out in Vegas for a day at Zappos, the online shoe retailer. And, you know, they're really well known for their culture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
World class.
Really well known for their culture, so much so that they've spun off this whole academy. They do.
We've had some people go through it as well.
Really? Yeah. So they do all different flavors of that training on site in Vegas, where they'll come out to your company and do it. And so Amit, you know, dipping his toe in, went to a 1-day course out in Vegas, and by lunch he realized, like, that's it. That's what we've been doing wrong. And so there was a huge mountain to climb to overcome it. And we can talk about that and what that journey looked like. But sometimes just, you know, when your problem has a name and a face, like that in itself is a huge relief, knowing what you need to fix.
Yeah, I'm specifically interested if there were any exercises that you guys did that you think might relate to gyms.
So probably, maybe we can talk through what we did, and then as we're talking through that, like tie some lessons to it. Because like Eric said, we kind of identified the problem, and in order to fix it, almost the opposite of how I talked about culture was slowly eroded. In order to fix it, we wanted something that was more drastic. So we ended up, there's a lot of thought that went into this, but long story short, we ended up shutting down the entire company for a week. For the first time in the company's history. We have an office in Lisbon, Portugal, and then the headquarters here in Philadelphia in the US. So the first time in the company's history, we shut down the company for a week. We invested a lot of money in bringing the entire team together in one place. We brought people from Zappos in to do some trainings, and for an entire week, we sent an email for our customers listening. You guys might remember it. We sent an email out to all of our customers and essentially just said, hope you understand. We need to work on ourselves for this week. We're going to be slower than we'd like to be in getting back to some customer support tickets, but this will help us serve all of you better in the long term. So we actually shot a little video, sent an email out about that. And we started with personal values. So every one of our team members did an exercise to understand their personal core values and what they cared about and valued as an individual, which for a lot of people, myself included, I'd never really done that exercise before. So starting there, I think
that could be life-changing
right
there.
Exactly. Starting there really helped, because then it wasn't this like work exercise of like let's just talk about Wodify in our company. It helped people understand that the company's core values had to connect with your core values if you were going to be on board with everything.
Right.
So again, this was a whole week, but we started, I think that first day was all about individual core values exercises combined with not necessarily team building, but just kind of breaking out of the day-to-day stuff a little bit. So we did like a lot of kind of fun games and exercises.
Got it.
To get people just out of their day-to-day kind of work mindsets. So we started with that, and then you want to talk about the rest of the week a little bit?
Well, even after that week, you know, part of that week too was actually just a lot of like the fun stuff, to go into a baseball game. 41 people came over from Portugal. Only 2 had ever seen a baseball game before.
That's cool.
So like going through all those experiences and really making friends, turning strangers who were colleagues, but you didn't really know that well or barely knew, couldn't put a face to a name.
It's crazy. Like most people listening to this can't relate to this, but when you run a remote company or when you work in a remote company, simply being around each other for a little bit solves so many problems.
It really does. It really does, because that person's not just, an email anymore. Like, it's a person that you're communicating with. But I think, this week-long event was incredibly expensive, incredibly transformative. But if we didn't continue to take steps post that week, then it would have all been for nothing. And I think that then is the most important part. I think our culture was in such a dark place at the time that a drastic event like that was really necessary. But where the real change is actually affected is on the day-to-day after that, and making the core values part of what you do every day. And so, as an example, pretty much every time if we do any kind of internal workshop, it always, it starts with a slide of here's our 10 core values. Here's the 3 that we're really focusing on today with this lesson. Or
do you know where your top 3 are?
Like personally?
Or no, your company values. Or are you saying when you're leading a workshop, you're putting your personal values up?
No. Say like if we have 10 values when we're going to do a workshop, we'll highlight the 3 that we're like really focusing on in that workshop.
Oh, okay. Got it. So this exercise, you wrote down your own personal values. Can you give us some examples of personal values?
Like for me, entrepreneurialism is a personal value. I think accountability and fun. Those are a couple of
them. And how did you determine that? Are you just like thinking like what matters to me, or what evidence do you have that that's really what you value?
That's a really good question. I'm trying to remember the exercise. This is why we brought in Zappos, because they actually run these exercises to tease out and like help you think through that. So I'm trying to remember. Do you remember the actual exercise?
It started with go in a corner for like 10 minutes or so with some sticky notes, and just start writing a value on a sticky note, on a sticky note, and throwing them on a board, on the wall, and then we wind up with this throughout the whole office walls of sticky notes. And I think then we combined into smaller groups and started comparing and narrowing down and
it's like and even the exercise of just having the time and space to think about that, a lot of people don't have. So reflecting,
no one takes the time to do that.
For reflecting for an hour and be like, what are you most proud of? What accomplishments are you most proud of? What are the people that you respect most in your life? What characteristics do they have? What are some of the decisions in your life or defining moments? Think through those. And then there was like a point where we kind of prompted with some ideas of values, and then you can kind of extrapolate how that applies to you.
I like that.
So that was really valuable. And I think going back to your original question of how gym owners might implement this, to draw some like tangible takeaways, the story we just told, like the takeaway there is it has to be defined as a group. You can't, as a gym owner, well, in my opinion, you can't say like, all right, let me lock myself in my office. For us, it wasn't a management retreat. It was the entire company, every single team member, coming together and defining it together. And what that means is that coming out on the other side, everyone feels bought in and like their voice was heard and they were part of it. So defining it as a group. And
how did that happen though? So you've all got your personal values. You've like, dwindled them down to the actual core, but then how do you turn that into company values?
Yeah, so it was another Zappos-led exercise. But I think the personal exercise helped us thinking about what core values are, and then what matters to you. And then the company values was like, I remember we split up into groups of like 3 to 6, something like that. And we talked about kind of the why of the company. Like, why do we spend our time? Like, why does Wodify exist? What are we really trying to do? And that exercise actually, like, it was a couple of hours, but that really helped us land on and I'll work backwards a little bit here, but our company purpose after all this, it sounds super simple, but there's a ton of meaning behind it, is to empower a fulfilled life. And so what we kept talking about was, we have a feature that does this, or we do this, but like what we're doing is we're allowing gym owners and entrepreneurs to realize their dreams of running a business, and we're impacting hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world who are getting into fitness,
logging in and using the service.
And so that kind of helped us. Like, you just kind of keep up to asking yourself like the why behind what you're doing, and then just a lot of brainstorming, consolidating ideas.
Yeah, and the big thing too is it's not necessarily taking the personal values and turning them into company values, but I think a big important part of the personal values part is aligning yourself to the idea, because like you mentioned, almost nobody actually does that, like creates values. And so like Brendan said, at first when you're told to create your own list of values, it's tough to even put yourself in that frame of mind and understand what that means. And so I think that exercise was to sort of sharpen our blade and get us going in the right direction. So that way, when we came to these teams of 5 or so people, we were all at least on the same page of what we meant when we said we were trying to come up with values.
Got it. And people are less caught up in their head thinking about like, when you're thinking about what are we, who are we, they're not thinking about like, we make widgets, we develop this software. Right. It's like, what benefit, what value do you create in the world? That's really powerful. Yeah.
And then, I mean, it's extended into so many areas of our business. Like I mentioned, the workshops and incorporating core values into that. Whenever we do hiring now, we do 2 interviews. We do a skills interview and a values interview. And so the hiring manager and somebody else from that department will do the skills interview. And then either right after or on another day, just 2 people, anybody from the office will do, without knowing what the hiring manager thought of the skills interview, nothing, just going in with a clean slate, evaluates that person purely on their values, and if they align with the company's values. And that's a really hard interview to conduct, because it's easy to blur the line between the values, like what makes you tick, the values, and do I like you? You don't necessarily, I mean, you want to like all your colleagues, of course, but you don't have to be the same people. You have to be careful not to hire people like you.
I've made this mistake so many times.
It's okay to have people different than you. That's where creativity comes from. But you need to make sure that your values are aligned.
So a big part of company culture is keeping people in line with the same, like working towards the same big vision. And I one problem or challenge I see for gym owners all the time is keeping their coaches motivated and working towards the same goals. Do y'all have any recommendations for how people can go about like keeping everyone working towards the same things?
Yeah, it comes down to that. It comes down to that purpose and that vision, and having people truly, bought in, understanding why they're doing what they're doing. And it's more than, like Brendan was saying, it's more than just, I'm doing this so this person loses weight, or the worst is I'm doing this for this paycheck. Knowing what exactly it is that you're trying to accomplish. I think as humans, we're just built a certain way to be motivated by accomplishing tasks. Everybody wants to accomplish things. Everybody wants to win. We're all motivated by winning, but you have to define what success is. You have to define what winning is first. And if that vision or that metric, that sort of bar of success isn't defined and nobody knows like when they're winning, I'm not going to say when they've won, because it's a continuous journey, but when they're winning, if nobody knows when they're winning, then it's just really easy to get demotivated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think like leading by example, constant reinforcement, and making sure there's never a finish line with culture, and you never think that like, all right, I did it, on to the next thing, are super important. So like leading by example is
dive into all 3 of those. Those are great.
Yeah, leading by example and constant reinforcement, I think, go hand in hand. And kind of what Eric said, like whether it's a internal workshop or a big new business decision we're making, constantly saying like, remember, this is why we, like tying it back to a specific core value and saying we're doing this because of this core value. So I think one of our, just to use an actual example, one of our core values is invest in yourself and others. And so one way we try to do that at work is through workshops that might help people develop skills that aren't necessarily directly related to their jobs. So we had a workshop, we do these all the time, but we had a workshop a few months ago where someone from our team, someone internal on our team who happens to like own properties and is handy, did a workshop on like patching up drywall and doing some minor repairs. So you might be able to get your security deposit back. Completely unrelated to anyone's role at Wodify.
Yeah.
But our core value is to invest in yourself and others and constantly be learning and have this mindset of learning and growth. And so we took 2 hours. Everyone learned about that and let someone on our team, be an expert and teach a bunch of people. And so, but again, going back to reinforcement, like that started with us with a slide of 10 core values. And I was saying, remember, this is one of our core values. And like we have cards that have all of our core values on them. We have wallpaper designs. We intentionally were like, this can't be something that we do as a project, becomes a slide deck or a booklet that people put in their desks and never forget about. It has to be just like
take action on them.
Reinforcement. And then the idea of like making sure that everyone's still there for the right reasons. Like one person who isn't aligned with the culture can like poison the well. And so one tangible way we did that after Culture Week is we went through Culture Week, and we made it very easy for people to opt out. We essentially we took this from Zappos too, but we made what we called like the offer at the time, which was essentially like, hey, this is our new culture and core values. Totally fine if you're not bought in. And like, if you'd like to opt out, it's a very accessible option, because we'd rather have people do that than stick around for a year or two if they're not bought into it. So that can cause some short-term pain, but in the long term, it's way better. So if if you're listening to this and thinking about going through some sort of cultural exercise at your gym, or if you already have and you maybe have one person who just isn't bought in, but you're like, oh, but they teach 4 classes, like we can't, they're so important. Like, it's worth the short-term pain to get the right people in your business.
Right. A couple other things that I think relate to gyms is, one, a lot of gyms are just like everything is status quo and there's nothing for the staff to really look forward to, or there's nothing that they're working towards as a company. So as a leader, in order to like really motivate people to do their best work, you've got to be working towards something, whether that's building new products, services, and programs, or refining and making the current ones better.
Yeah. And there's some, I don't know, I've been to a lot of CrossFit gyms over the years and been members or dropped in, and there's some really just obvious ways that I've seen as a member too, and you can tell that the staff at the gym's not bought in. As an example, if the coach is also eating dinner while coaching class, they're probably not bought in. If your 5:30 a.m. coach is still wearing flip-flops or sandals, that they're slippers, they're probably not bought in. Like you could actually, if you start aligning your thinking this way, you could probably walk around your business and sort of self-reflect and see it yourself.
And thinking like the motivation element of that is, as an owner or as a business leader, thinking about ways to show progress or celebrate wins. And so like one way we do that, we use Slack, like internal communication tool, and we have a little shout outs channel. And, we have a bunch of customers all over the world now, but we got an email from one customer like a month or two ago. And it was literally just like, hey, reaching out, just wanted to let you guys know, like, I sold my CrossFit gym, been with you guys for 6 years, like sold it. Just wanted to say thank you. You guys have been amazing over the years. And like, that's one customer out of all. And it's such a small example, but it's like, our purpose is to empower a fulfilled life. This person started a gym, used Wodify for 6 years, handed it off to a new gym owner. Like, that's why we wake up every day. And whether you're in customer support or marketing or sales or whatever, like that's what can help motivate and drive us. And if you don't share that, like, she didn't send that email to our whole company. Right. So if you don't share that, then people in the engineering team aren't going to see that. People in other teams. So you need to make sure that you're sharing the wins with the entire team.
I love that. Another one that I have suffered from big time is having too many ideas. So this is the opposite of the thing that I just shared. So rather than having no ideas of moving forward, you just have way too many, and you don't prioritize, and you just put too much on your staff. How do you guys, I'm sure you have a list of 1,000 new features that you're working on. How do you guys think about prioritization and figuring out what to work on when?
It's a kind of a matrix, right? And it goes a little bit into what we were talking about earlier, where you've got customer requests coming in. And I
love when we say the word matrix. We know this is going to be a great conversation.
Well, there's just a lot of factors at play, right? You have customer requests, and you need to make sure that the customer requests are founded in some sort of like true root need, right? I talked earlier about data versus data points. You got to make sure there's real data to support that this is a real request. Of course, we're a business, right? We're for profit, so we need to also look at costs. We need to look at return on investment. And also, as I mentioned earlier, the example I gave of you're a CrossFit gym, maybe your members are asking for a rock climbing wall. What is it that people are asking us for, and does it align with our vision for our product in the long term? There's this Simon Sinek just wrote a book called The Infinite Game, and I've just been seeing that concept around a lot more, and the concept really summarized being that a finite game has an end, and a finish line, and you win, whereas an infinite game goes on forever. And if you're in business, you should be playing the infinite game and really thinking long term. So making sure that we're not making a decision to plug a hole today that backs ourselves into a corner later. It's definitely it's an artful science.
Mm-hmm. And I think something I'd add to that is like focusing on your core competencies. And so for us, there's so many things we could do outside of software, and some we've tried and failed at. Like we were talking about selling apparel, or like a lot of gyms want us to do some sort of like maybe hardware or marketing solution. There's just so many different things we can do. And so for us to be honest with ourselves, say, what's our core competency? Or for your gym and your coaches, what's your core competency? And really focusing and making sure you're doing a good job at that and not getting distracted by ideas where on the surface am I like, oh yeah, we should do that. That makes a lot of sense. And then spreading yourself too thin and doing like a mediocre job of a bunch of stuff versus doing something really well.
We're also not afraid to solve customer problems with brute force. An example being,
You mean brute strength?
Yeah. So it was a couple years ago. A few customers had a need. They were a little bit in the minority in like how important this need was to them. Like it was holding them back in a way, but it's only a very small amount of customers, and so for a period of time, we didn't wind up building the feature for a couple of years, but over those couple of years, we would manually on our end, just have somebody from our team just handling it, and I know we're in a world of automation and automate everything, but sometimes just a little brute strength is all you need.
Love it.
Light plug.
A slightly related analogy. I think it was Newt Gingrich that said this. He said, "Are you hunting field mice or antelope?" So I think it's like maybe lions. They can't, like, there's field mice all over where they're hunting and they're living, and they could easily catch a bunch of field mice. And this is edible to them, but it takes more energy to hunt them and kill them than it does to eat them. So if they spend all of their time eating these field mice, then they're going to die. Or they can spend a whole bunch of time, kill one antelope, and their entire family eats for they live and they can live forever. So in business, it's really easy to get bogged down by the new shiny thing, and it takes more courage, it takes commitment, and a lot of focus to pick the things that matter most, that are inside of your core competency, and to stay committed to them throughout the year, despite all of these new shiny things coming up.
Well, especially when you're in a niche, right? Like CrossFit is a niche within a niche within a niche, right? And for us, when we're focused on the CrossFit market, when there's such a tight niche, it's a community that is all communicating. It is very frequent for things like that to pop up, a new flavor of the month to pop up, and then all of a sudden you get a ton of customer requests about something, and it's software. It doesn't build itself, and it doesn't build overnight. And by the time you actually get to go build it, reflect on ourselves and say, wait, do customers actually still want this, or is that not of interest anymore?
That's an interesting an interesting point. How do you decide? So I'm sure you've been building things sometimes for 6 months, 9 months, and then you figure out, no, people don't want this anymore. How do you know when to like kill a project?
Wow. We just killed a really big, we were working on a project recently for over a year, and we just killed it. It's not really customer facing, in that it's not a feature that customers would use, but it's something to help optimize the performance of the application for all of our customers. And that's a tough one, because when you have certain people working on the technology or in the trenches working on it every day, you get really emotionally attached to it. And I don't know that I have a direct answer for how, like, when but typically too late.
Yeah. Well, I think to your point earlier, if you're constantly reminding yourself what your values are and what you're really working towards, it can get really clear at some point that this no longer aligns with those goals. It did back then, but it no longer does.
Yeah, and I mean, there's this concept of like waterfall versus agile software development, and a lot of people want to be agile, it's more continuous. You're delivering
sprints,
functionality. And more shorter delivery cycles, so that way you're getting a product in your consumer's hands faster. It might not be the fully baked feature, but you're getting iterations of it faster to get continuous feedback. It's easier said than done for sure. I think it's really common if you talk to somebody in software and ask, "Are you agile?" Like a common answer might be, "Well, like we try to be." That's definitely something you strive for, to be like truly agile and truly be able to deliver value to customers maybe every couple of weeks. That's the ideal state.
Mm-hmm.
If you can do that, because then you're not waiting several months to get something out the door. You're getting something within weeks or maybe a month or two of the request, getting that feedback, and then making sure that as the community and the consumer base evolves their need, because that need will evolve from that first request, then you're able to evolve the software with it.
Yeah, and something else is thinking about, like, just asking yourself, what will this look like in 2, 3, 4 years? Like, are you building something? Are you kind of building for the future?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you building for the present? Is the problem you're solving for still going to be a problem in a couple of years?
Right.
So, like, a relevant example in our business is more and more over the past year or two, there are other kind of point software solutions that come up that gym owners might start using. Like, for example, we do a lot of marketing and communications, but there's like some gym specific marketing automation companies that do more. And so gym owners might start using that. Mm-hmm. And so we have a choice of saying, like, well, should we build an integration with that company that we could build in maybe a couple months? Or should we create, which takes longer, should we create a more open, extensible platform that a lot of companies could build integrations on top of?
Right.
And that's the more like future-proof approach, because we know maybe today it's that one company, but we don't know what that company will be in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And so it takes, it's more forward-looking and it takes a little more effort, but it positions us to be in a better spot a few years down the road. So we're not just building one-off solutions.
Yeah, that's great. So just to wrap up company culture, basically find a guy that does drywall.
Exactly.
Got it.
Well, we have one if you need.
Yeah. In that same workshop, it was I think the most mind-blowing part. It was great. People learned how to patch drywall and everything. I think the most mind-blowing part of that was when the guy teaching the workshop, or the guys teaching the workshop, taught everybody the difference between a sink plunger and a toilet plunger. People's minds exploded, including Brendan's.
Did you know there was a difference?
This would blow my mind.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have to show you.
Well, YouTube.
I can't really describe it. Yeah, I'll have to show it to you.
So I think this is a good place to wrap up. I want to hear a couple of different things about Wodify. First off, as I was researching for this, I noticed y'all have some really cool free online courses with people like the owners of Two Brain Business, which is basically business mentoring for gyms, as well as Jason Khalipa. Talk about these things a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So this year we launched something called Wodify Blueprint. You can visit it if you go to blueprint.wodify.com. But the whole idea behind it is we want to be able to help our customers use our product better. So many customers use like 10% of all the features we have. And so it solves their immediate needs, but we want to help educate them on how to use more and more features so that they can run better business. It's in their best interest. And then obviously it's in our best interest. If they're using more of our product, they're getting more value out of it, and they're more likely to stay with us for longer. So the idea was, how can we help them use more of our product? And so we created an actual entire online learning academy. We use like an LMS platform. You log in.
What do y'all use? Like Teachable or something?
We use Thinkific.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was how the idea started. And then once we had that system, we were like, well, they're asking for a lot more. And I don't want to be like, I'm in marketing. We talked about marketing a little bit here, but I don't want to try to say that I'm an expert at gym marketing, but there are people in this industry we have relationships with who are, and we have thousands of gym owners who come to us for education and information. Mm-hmm. So we partner with folks like Jason Khalipa, Chris Cooper at Two Brain, and try to provide some of those resources. So there's one place where gym owners can go and consume some of that. So blueprint.wodify.com, if you're a customer, you can go there and you can actually log in. All of it's free. You can go through those courses, get some amazing advice. There's downloads. There's just so much information out there that we've done the kind of legwork of curating and putting together for them. And if you're not a customer, both of those, the Chris Cooper one and the NC Fit one, are on our blog. So if you search them on our blog,
that's awesome.
Hours of videos, the downloads, everything. We are very much in the business of helping gym owners succeed. And so whether or not you're paying for our software or not, we want to try to make that content.
Empowering fulfilled lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Badass.
You get it.
So what else do you want people to know about Wodify before we wrap it up?
I think what's really important to know is especially given our renewed culture and everything, is how much the company is behind what we're doing. It's more than a product. I've never been in or seen an environment like our service team and the level of care. We're a lot more than just the product. Like Brendan was talking about Blueprint, we saw this symptom where we had some customers quit and go to another piece of software for a feature that we have. Yeah. And so, yeah. And so that was a symptom in knowing that like us and our customers were just out of touch.
Got it.
Right. And that's so much different than the product. The product had the solution. And so, Brendan's done a great job with his team and creating Blueprint, doing regular webinars that just they're free to anybody, and they always deliver value, whether it's sometimes it's just about Wodify and the product, and sometimes it's just general advice. We just launched this month. We're in a pilot phase of it, of doing account reviews and just setting up calls with customers it's completely free, and just having extended conversations with customers. There's not necessarily a direct ROI for us, but it's just it's the right thing to do. People are paying for a product and not using all of it.
So it's an all-in-one business, marketplace, performance tracking, and you're also their pen pals. You're their friends and you're their therapist now.
Well, yeah, that's the idea. We're trying to grow into that. We just had a conversation internally where we were talking about how we need to really extend the breadth of the advice that we give. We don't try to hide it. Like Brendan said a couple of times, we're not gym owners ourselves, so we're not going to necessarily speak from direct experience and tell you exactly what you need to do. But I definitely encourage customers to start asking us questions outside of just the software, because just as important, sometimes more important than having the answer is we have the resources and we know the people, we know all the industry leaders, and we're really putting a lot of concerted effort into making sure that we help connect those dots for the community.
Guys, this has been great. It's, everybody thinks that Wodify is run by robots. But it's nice to see the people behind it.
Walmart's behind it.
And y'all have got an awesome story. And both of you are just so articulate about the company culture and what you guys are really about. So this has been a real pleasure. And I think this is going to be really valuable for gym owners. So thank you for your time. You can find Eric at Sharts and Giggles. I don't know if Brendan's on social media, but...
well, thank you too. Anytime I have an excuse to come to Austin, I'm in.
Amen. Later, guys.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Your journey towards better fitness continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com to connect with Michael and his guests. Access links and resources mentioned in this episode, as well as bonus content exclusive to podcast listeners. That's brutestrengthtraining.com.